I have some big news that I want to cover on Nvidia stock and why I'm buying more Nvidia stock right now. Had a very interesting conversation with a Microsoft engineer who explained to me the impacts of DeepSeek, and I had a lot of questions because I wanted to understand the long-term implications that DeepSeek has on the overall AI industry and the implications that it would have on Nvidia, since we did see like $500 billion lost in the market. I sat down with one of my students and clients and I asked them, how was this achieved? And I want to give you a quick summary, okay? The quick summary of my interpretation is that they used OpenAI, they used something called distillation process to get outputs, build a cheap model, and what the engineer told me was basically America is in a Sputnik moment, just like the Soviet Union was, and America thought that they were ahead in space technology, but in fact, we had the Soviet Union in October 4th, 1957, launched the world's first artificial satellite. So this is very important because I think that innovation is going to increase. And my takeaway from this conversation was that I think Nvidia is going to be a fantastic investment to make for the next 3 to 5 years. I'm still going to keep this video short and to the point, but now let's go over my longer term analysis and what I learned from the engineer and thoughts that I gathered myself. So analysts worry about AI chip demand that it will peak in 2025. That will lead to slower Nvidia growth, right? Because less companies will be demanding Nvidia chips. However, I think that's far from the truth, and the fact is that Nvidia is only going to see more demand because right now we're in an AI race between US and China. So when I look at the valuation of Nvidia, which has a price to sales ratio of 30 times, this is actually very, very reasonable, and the valuation is far from being overvalued, and I think right now we're fairly valued. However, what's going to come in the AI revolution is going to give Nvidia a lot more money, a lot more revenue, a lot more profits, and I think the stock is going to be worth $200+, at the end of 2025, going into 2026, which I think is a really good opportunity for buying leap options, for covered calls, for selling puts. I would specifically sell puts at a 30 delta. I would also do covered calls at a 30 delta. For me, every time Nvidia has earnings, I think the CEO will come in with more insights, more innovation, and at the end of the day, we only have one game in town. We have Nvidia because they're supplying the entire AI industry. Yes, there's other companies. Yes, there's some competitors. But the valuation on Nvidia and the market opportunity is really massive. So when I was sitting down and trying to understand and form a better decision to make on Nvidia and what do I do with my shares, because I have a lot of shares, I've decided that I'm only going to be buying more hand over fist, as you guys already know my saying. So I think that, I was talking to the subject matter expert who was working at Microsoft. He has a lot of experience. He's a friend and client, subject matter expert actually in the AI space. So when I try to understand, what does this mean for Nvidia? What is DeepSeek and what is China copying really do for the US? Well, it actually spurs a very interesting question, which is who's going to win the AI race and where to invest? Where do I invest to have a long-term competitive advantage? How do I continue to grow my portfolio, my client's portfolio? So again, my conclusion is to simply continue to buy Nvidia and not to be concerned about competitors and the AI race itself. Because at the end of the day, right, China DeepSeek was using Nvidia chips. Older or newer, it doesn't really matter. And I looked at history because history does repeat itself. And when you're investing, you want to understand, what does history have to do with the future? And actually has a lot to do with it. So a Sputnik moment, which I was discussing, was basically when, America thought that they were ahead in the space technology race, but the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite by Soviet Union, October 4th, 1957. And my parents are from Soviet Union. This actually created a whole arms race between America, because America got slapped in the face with some pancakes, heavy syrup on them with a lot of butter. And the US started to have a sense of urgency. And you can see how I'm trying to foreshadow here that the same thing is going on right now with DeepSeek in China. You can see a lot of companies are copying this model. So DeepSeek R1 used AI distillation, which is leveraging larger models like GPT-4 and Llama to train a smaller, more efficient model. The way it works is instead of storing vast knowledge, it mimics responses of larger models using a student-teacher approach. It uses multiple AI sources to provide diverse perspectives, improving adaptability and robustness. And it can also run on consumer-grade hardware, making AI more accessible. This is a very big net benefit, and it means that AI is going to be more important in the economy, and NVIDIA is going to be a huge component of that. Smaller models risk, by the way, hallucinations, which was explained to me basically when a model is very confident but has incorrect answers, and it has inherent biases from their training models. So I personally wouldn't use DeepSeek myself, but the broader implications that I took out of this, because it's very important for me to understand, do I keep holding NVIDIA stock or do I cut it? I'm trying to find research on the cutting edge. I want to find research from insider, not calling it insider information, but I wanted to find good reasons to continue to hold. So the broader implications here is that DeepSeek will democratize AI by lowering entry barriers affecting large AI companies' pricing models. And it may also reduce reliance on cloud-based AI and threaten US AI firms' business models. You'll see that OpenAI, they have a paid plan, but now DeepSeek has open source, so anyone can go in and start playing around, and more companies will do that because they can now build models for a lot cheaper. This is overall a net benefit because DeepSeek R1 may be efficient, but training large AI models still requires massive computing power, which means demand for NVIDIA's H100 and future B100 AI GPUs will remain really strong and high. So overall with NVIDIA's business, I'm going to say we're going to see a lot of strong demand in 2025, and this is easily a $200 stock. So DeepSeek R1 doesn't change the demand for GPUs. If anything, it only increases it. So AI is just one of many NVIDIA's growth sectors as well, because I wanted to point this out, and I was talking to the engineer. I was curious, what else does he see that NVIDIA will really dominate and get a lot more revenue? Because obviously NVIDIA is not a cheap stock, and for it to go up to a $5 trillion valuation and be worth $5 trillion, which is, where I want it to go and where I think it'll go because I have a lot of money in it, I wanted to understand what else is important. And there was three main components. So the first one is data centers. Data centers are going to bring NVIDIA a lot of cash flow. Second place is gaming GPUs. So still the gold standard for gaming, professional visualization, and crypto applications. So gaming GPUs is actually one of the fastest growing parts of NVIDIA's GPU demand. And gaming is a really big economic motive for NVIDIA as well. And gaming is going to be a really huge profit pool for NVIDIA. The third one is automotive and robotics. This is something that's really interesting because we saw that Elon Musk said that robots are going to be a huge opportunity for Tesla along with FSD. That's what's going to make Tesla potentially more valuable than the 5 next biggest companies like Google and Apple and the rest. NVIDIA is pushing into AI-powered self-driving and industrial automation. So those are the 3 areas of opportunity for NVIDIA. And those are the 3 reasons I'm going to hold it. Now, autonomous driving and Tesla-specific FSD will be adopted by the whole market, most likely. And that will happen in 2027, 2028, according to Elon Musk predictions, Elon Musk claims. And I do think it's also reasonable for us to expect that in the next 2 to 3 years. And you want to be early on that, right? So you can buy NVIDIA later when FSD comes into fruition, because that is a risk. There's no guarantee that's going to happen, just like there's no guarantees in anything. But I would still hold NVIDIA and be early here, because for me, being early is NVIDIA under $150 per share. So if it's under 150, I would sell puts with as much money as I have, up to 25% of my net worth, right? That's pretty much how much I have in NVIDIA, thereabouts. And that's what I think is reasonable for a growth investor looking for the highest amount of growth. NVIDIA is the best game in town. It has high implied volatility, which makes the options really good. So selling 30 delta puts, 30 delta covered calls on automatic mode is the way to just gather up a lot of juicy premium and to have exposure into one of the best stocks, NVIDIA. So collapse in cost innovation also makes me super excited. So AI training costs drop 75% per year, according to some resources. And the conversation that I had with an AI researcher was essentially that as cost droppings continue at 75%, it's essentially exponential cost reduction, just like sequencing a genome. This is going to lead to massive innovations. And there's actually more AI demand than we can even predict right now, because this is the fastest growing trend. There's going to be companies that we're not even aware of because they may have not started yet, or maybe they're very early in starting, which is going to have a lot of GPU demand. So it's not just the big hyperscalers in town that need that, it's going to be a lot more. So for me, the areas that I was having a discussion with, I spent a couple hours on a Zoom call, was robo-taxis, Tesla. We discussed that. Robo-taxis are going to be huge because it makes a lot of economic sense. And economically, why would you grab a taxi when, with a person in it when it's half the cost to grab a taxi with a Tesla with no driver, right? Healthcare, we're going to see a reduction in sequencing, and that's going to be also really amazing. Gene editing, longer lives and healthier lives, that's going to be a big component where AI is also going to dominate. There's going to be companies that are going to be popping up because healthcare is a huge industry and there's going to be GPU demand, and Nvidia is fueling that. So again, another catalyst there, another opportunity. And one of the biggest opportunities is also productivity gains for knowledge workers. So I think everyone wants workers to be more productive, and obviously AI will replace a lot of jobs, but it's a net benefit to knowledge workers. So knowledge workers are professionals who rely on thinking, problem solving, communication rather than manual labor. And they're seeing huge productivity boosts thanks to AI advancements like DeepSeek R1 and GPT-based models. So I'm super bullish on NVIDIA, and this was an NVIDIA update with my research. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.